Today on Across the Fence, we're headed to the urban forest. We'll learn about the greens and greening of Vermont cities and towns. Good afternoon and thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. Here in the Green Mountains, we love the trees that line our back roads and cover our hills and valleys, but we can sometimes miss the trees in our urban landscapes and our own front yards. Since 1991, Vermont's Urban and Community Forestry Program has provided technical and financial assistance to over 150 Vermont communities. Their work in city parks, along busy streets, and around town greens is vital to the people and places of Vermont. Joining me are two members of UVM Extension's Urban and Community Forestry Program. Elise Shadler is the Technical Assistance Coordinator, and Gwen Kozlowski is the program's Outreach and Education Coordinator. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thanks, Judy.
So, Elise, what's the mission of the Vermont Urban and Community Forestry?
You know, our mission is really to support and lead Vermont citizens, municipalities, and businesses in really understanding the benefits of urban trees, and also to promote tree stewardship at the local level.
And so, Gwen, what's the range of people that you work with?
We're fortunate to have a wide range of programming to reach many different aspects of the community. We provide educational programming for both community members and youth. We have technical assistance for both municipalities and appointed tree wardens, and also provide financial assistance through a grants program that's available for municipalities and volunteer organizations as well.
So what does an urban forest contribute to the community?
A lot. There are, a very wide variety of environmental, economic, and social benefits that trees provide. Some of them are a lot more obvious or well known. Trees really add to the character of a place, so aesthetically they're really important to our downtowns. They provide opportunities for outdoor recreation, for wildlife habitat, they clean our air and our water, they provide oxygen for us to breathe, and they help to mitigate stormwater runoff.
There's some more intangible benefits as well. They actually provide economic value too. So a properly planted tree can save a homeowner up to 20% of their energy costs throughout the year.
Just providing shade.
Just providing shade and breaking the wind from winter weather.
Now, Elise, you've been here before to talk about the Care of Urban Forest project. That 3-year project has ended, but can you remind our viewers what that was all about?
Sure. It was a really awesome project that we got to do for 3 years. We're just wrapping it up now. It was a U.S. Forest Service funded project that we had designed really with the intention of helping municipalities in Vermont move their tree programs forward, so their municipal tree management programs. We worked with 20 communities through the grant and an additional 7 to 10 afterwards. And it was really focused on the 3 prongs. So the first was to conduct a tree inventory of all the public trees in the town. The second was to do a management plan or an action plan based on the results of the inventory to work with the towns to actually manage the trees. And then the third piece was to hold a half or a full day technical tree care training in the towns with public works employees, parks department employees, roads crews, volunteers, just interested people.
Why was it important to get all those people together?
Well, in Vermont, we only have, we have very few communities that have a paid arborist on staff. So, generally the tree management falls on public works or volunteers to do that work. So it was really important for us to be able to get all those people that are touching trees in some way, managing trees at the local level together to go through that training.
Well, a couple of years back, Across the Fence followed Elise and her team as they were cataloging the urban forests of St. Albans. Here's Across the Fence's Keith Silva.
Our kind of catchphrase in the field of urban forestry is right tree, right place, right way.
Elise Shadler documents what trees are growing in the urban forests of Vermont's villages, cities, and towns. On the docket, St. Albans.
We're essentially looking at every tree that falls within the public right-of-way along streets and residential roads, and also trees on public parks, in cemeteries, around town office buildings, around libraries, and at some schools in some communities. So anything that's considered to be under the public purview. They're small now and they're crossed, and as they grow larger, they're going to eventually...
Shadler works for the Vermont Urban Community Forestry Program, a collaboration between University of Vermont Extension and Department of Forests, Parks, and Recreation. St. Albans is one of 20 communities Shadler and her colleagues are visiting. At each site, they've logged over 200 hours of data to create a tree inventory. Their efforts set the foundation for the Care of the Urban Forest project.
It's three major components. The first is a public tree inventory. The second is a management plan for the trees based on the results of that inventory. And then the third step is that we're actually bringing in a certified arborist to work with the town staff in each community to learn how to better maintain their trees and manage their trees properly. In Vermont, most communities do not have a city arborist that's paid on staff, so a lot of times that falls on the volunteer tree warden or a conservation commission or a volunteer tree board, or it's housed in the public works department or parks and rec. So we really want to support communities that have a large street tree population in better managing and stewarding those trees, and the very first step is just to know what you have.
With a tape measure and an expert set of eyes, Shadler notes every aspect of each tree, from its species and size to its condition and location. All the information gets recorded on an iPad.
We really wanted something that was going to be web-based and accessible from multiple devices by multiple people. So we've been working with the State of Vermont's Agency of Natural Resources IT team for the last couple years on developing a really specific Vermont public tree inventory tool. The great thing about this system is that when we go home at the end of the day and sync that data from the day, it automatically uploads to the ANR Atlas tool, which is an online map-based tool that has multiple different layers that the Agency of Natural Resources manages. After we're finished taking this data, you can actually zoom into your town, click on the urban tree canopy layer, and find your street and click on the tree that's in front of your house, and you can see what species it is, what size it is, if there's anything that we flagged that tree for, and a picture of it.
If that were out in your field behind your house, maybe you could take your chances on
Curtis Comfort is the planning and permitting administrator for St. Albans and the city's tree warden.
I'm anxious to see the results of the inventory and see what the crew thinks are the hot spots in the city, what trees really need attention right away so that we can maintain their dignity, their beauty, and their health.
The service being provided by this project is a valuable tool for shaping how the city will look in the future. It's sure to help Comfort in his work, but it's also an asset to the taxpayers of St. Albans.
Having an inventory of the trees and having a proactive plan for maintenance is of the utmost importance. And to naysayers who may say you should be more concerned with issues directly related to the city, like the construction of buildings, roads, sidewalks, having a healthy urban forest is directly related to that stuff, because if you have the wrong tree planted in the wrong place, you may spend thousands of dollars rebuilding a sidewalk, and it may only be a matter of years before the roots of a tree that become invasive to, who knows, sewer pipes underneath, or just start to buckle the sidewalk. There's a very pragmatic way to look at the urban forest as well.
If any part of that tree were to fail, it's gonna...
Like any natural resource, an urban forest has to be conserved and cared for to ensure its survival.
We want long-lived, large trees that are healthy, because those are going to provide the most long-term benefits to citizens and the community as a whole. So, we are advocates of, even if you have a spot where you might be able to plant a tree, if that's not going to have enough soil volume for that tree to succeed, we're not going to recommend you put a tree there. Again, I think that in the past, the field has been really focused on planting, and I think that we're really coming to a point now, and especially in Vermont communities, that a lot of them have a lot of trees, is let's care for the trees that are in the ground, let's prune them properly, let's train them properly, set them up to have a really long-lived and healthy life.
Cataloging, counting, and planning for the future of the urban forest. One community, one street, and one tree at a time. In St. Albans, I'm Keith Silva with Across the Fence.
Well, thanks, Keith. We're talking about the Vermont Urban and Community Forestry Program with Elise Shadler and Gwen Kozlowski. Elise, what were some of the facts that you learned from this inventory?
We learned a lot. First, I'll just say that this project really allowed us to be in communities in a way that we hadn't before. So we learned a lot about the technical needs and the obstacles that communities are facing in managing their trees. As far as the trees themselves, we've inventoried over 17,000 now.
Wow.
We went beyond that original 20 and have continued to do another 9 inventories. We know that about 35% of all of our public trees are in the maple genus, so that's a lot. The most popular species are sugar maple, then Norway maple, crabapple, red maple, and then green ash. So we have like 112 different species that were identified, so a lot. About 80% of the trees that we inventoried are in good shape, which is really good,
Yeah.
but there are about 200 that were identified that were dead within the public right-of-way, so those are obviously trees those municipalities really need to address dead trees in the right-of-way. And we learned that about 75% of the trees that we inventoried are under 18 inches in diameter, so it's a relatively young population that haven't reached maturity yet. So in the video I talk about we want those long-lived trees.
Right. And so you calculated the worth to communities in dollars. What can you tell us?
Yeah, we use iTree Streets. So iTree is a U.S. Forest Service software suite. It's free to the public, so it really basically just uses back-end calculations to quantify the economic benefits of trees. And we found that about 12,000 of those trees that we ran through the data are providing about $1.2 million in benefits annually to Vermonters. That breaks down to about $100 per tree.
Wow. And so what do you hope towns and citizens in general do with this kind of information?
The goal was to increase capacity at the local level, and we think we really hit the nail on the target there. And we, with a lot of these towns, we've seen them commit to sending staff to trainings. We've seen them try to get a more engaged tree warden appointed. We've seen them really think about management in more of a proactive way than a reactive way. And the most exciting piece is that we actually the tool that we use, ArcGIS Collector on the iPads. The technology has advanced in those 3 years, so now we actually have an editor tool, so the towns can actually manage their own data. So the inventory goes from being a snapshot in time to something that they can edit trees, they can delete trees, they can add new trees, and it's in their hands now. So that's the most exciting piece.
Now, Gwen, you've been working on a new project. Tell us about the Vermont invasives.
VTinvasives.org is your one-stop shop for learning about all invasive species across the state. Invasive species threaten a lot of the things that we care about. Today we talked about the trees and the many values that they add to our communities, and invasive species threaten many of the things that we care about. So it's a place that you can learn information about identification, management techniques, outreach, and our messaging, like don't move firewood, across plants, aquatic, and plants and animals, and terrestrial forest pests.
And so one of the aspects of the website is that visitors can report what they find. How does that work?
It's actually one of the best features of the website. So the website itself covers identification and management information, but if a concerned citizen wants to submit a photo of something that they're not sure might be a potential invasive species, it then actually triggers an email to the appropriate state staff, and we're able to respond to that. Now, we're not necessarily looking for all of the common buckthorn or Japanese knotweed, which are species that are well established in many communities. We're looking for species that are not present in Vermont yet or are present in low numbers.
So most wanted.
That's a tough question to answer, but for aquatics, we're looking for something like the New Zealand mud snail or the Asian clam that are not in Vermont. For terrestrial plants, we're looking for watch list species, which again is on our website for the whole list that includes but is not limited to something like giant hogweed or mile-a-minute vine. And of course, for forest pests, we're looking for emerald ash borer and Asian longhorn beetle, which have not been found in Vermont.
But they've been found in states surrounding us, which is the concern.
Exactly.
And so the summer camping season's getting underway, and you did mention firewood. What should people know about firewood?
Don't move firewood. That's our key take-home message. There's actually a Vermont quarantine law that prevents the transportation of firewood into the state of Vermont that went into effect in May 2016.
And so you're looking for people to help out with these programs.
Absolutely. We have volunteer opportunities and events, and you could visit our website and get involved in many different ways.
Okay. And so if you see an invasive species, you can report it to vtinvasives.org. The reporting tool is easy to use, and you can also find out how to volunteer or raise awareness about Vermont invasive species. For more information about Vermont urban and community forestry, you can visit their website, vtcommunityforestry.org. When you visit, don't forget to sign up for their tree mail. You'll get the latest on what's happening in Vermont's urban forests and how you can get involved. Well, I want to thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you.
It's a lot of great information. I was checking it out earlier today. It's a lot of fun to use that.
Yep.
That's our program for today. Thanks for joining us. I'm Judy Simpson. We'll see you again next time on Across the Fence.